distributed design thinking. I'm not sure how many of you kind of have a preconceived notion as to what I might be talking about. If you do, congratulations, because I have no idea what I'm going to be talking about, but I'll work it out as I go along. So my name is Jason Grant, and I think the lovely presenters have introduced me as to kind of what clients that we worked with and where I studied. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of this conference. I feel completely underdressed. Usually, you know, in UK, we would just kind of like wear whatever you want to work. So I haven't been wearing a suit for a while. You know, I feel like, you know, all of you are extremely well presented and well dressed. So thanks for, I mean, this is marvelously organized and amazing. So I'm already kind of under pressure to deliver as much value to you as possible. And the first thing that I'd like to say before I start talking is that I see this initial presentation as just a very much introduction towards a conversation that we ought to be having throughout these 2 days. I'm going to be hanging around here for today and tomorrow, and I'd love to have as deep a conversation with as many of you as possible on this subject of design thinking, distributed design thinking, thinking deep, consciousness, becoming better people, creating better companies, all these kind of things. This is what I'm all about. And so with UX Coach, I think I'm like the only person wearing a sort of branded t-shirt. UX Coach is a company that we've been conceptualizing now for a bunch of months, and it's about coaching 1 billion people design thinking before I die, if I die. We're not sure about that yet. I have this debate with many people close to me, and you know, it's kind of blasphemy to say I'm not going to die, but then we'll see. So 1 billion people coaching, and in the process of doing that as well, we're doing practical design all the time. And the current client, one of the clients that we're working with is in United Kingdom is Ministry of Justice. And Ministry of Justice is about the courts and the judicial system, so the civil, criminal, commercial, and family courts. We're working on redesigning the entire judicial system, which is funded at 1 billion UK pounds a year, just for the sort of virtual aspect of turning court procedures into virtual judging procedures. So that's just like one example of a client that we're working with. And this entire presentation is related to how to approach an organization that employs, let's say, 76,000 people of all sorts, and how to leverage design thinking into that kind of organization to create a phase up of value, quality, thinking, optimization, and so on. So the first thing I want to start off with is this notion of spiral dynamics. Famous psychologist Claire Graves spoke about spiral dynamics. Now, show of hands, who has heard of spiral dynamics here? Anybody? Spiral dynamics? Anybody heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Okay, a few of you. So spiral dynamics is like Maslow's hierarchy of needs on steroids. Okay, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like people want food and shelter, and then eventually they tend towards some sort of self-actualization. But rarely do people talk about what self-actualization actually means. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs is just this kind of like thing of being better people, let's say. And but spiral dynamics talks about Maslow's hierarchy of needs in much more practical sense, and breaks it down into more of the kind of structured evolution of human consciousness, okay? And so what I'd like to really share with you is that you can start noticing in the people that surround you which level of consciousness they reside at, okay? So the first level of spiral dynamics is this instinctive level, where it's all about me. So I just want food, I want shelter, I want water, I want to, you know, keep myself protected and safe. And in this kind of situation, a human animal, we could call it, all they care about is these levels of consciousness. Very basic, very instinctive. It's like, is there threat coming? Okay, I'm going to hide. Am I hungry? I'm going to go and eat. Am I thirsty? I'm going to drink some water. Am I sleepy? I'm going to sleep and hide in my cave. Okay? So many, many people around the world are at this level still, in many respects. And we all have this. This is all integral part of who we are. We have to eat, sleep, and drink and sort of hide away from stormy weather and keep safe. And it's about I. The next level is the magic level. So animistic, people start believing in magic things because after they have their food and shelter, they start wondering about, okay, so I'm like, my stomach is full, I'm not thirsty, I've had enough sleep, I'm in a kind of quiet, sheltered area, I'm bored. So they start wondering who else is around, okay? And they want to become a little bit more social. So people at this level start creating tribes, okay? And still around the world, we have tribes in Amazon forest, in Africa, and in many respects, there are tribes in our cities still remaining today. The little tribe, probably in this area of Bydgoszcz. Did I pronounce it properly? Thank you. Probably in this area, there's a tribe of people who believe that they're from the center of Bydgoszcz. And then the zone 2 is like a slightly different tribe, okay? And so this tribal mentality is present even in these modern developed areas, which, let's say, Poland is, compared to some other countries and areas in the world. But then, so what happens is people become these kind of power animals. So I want to be the best guy in the center of Bydgoszcz, okay? And I want to show everybody that I am the best guy. I developed this ego. I am the best. And so you can think of this level as very present in some very prominent areas of certainly local living. You might find that your local mayor has got quite a big ego, and he thinks of himself as very, very important person. And he probably is. And he wants to perhaps enforce a bit of rule based on his own thinking. And that's kind of normal at this level. But what happens in the world is like sometimes big presidents of countries still reside on this level, and they apply their own personal I to the rest of the country. And that becomes an issue, as you will see later on. Because after people rule, after people have this kind of power I and dominate a local area, what ends up happening is the other people notice, you're oppressing me, I don't want to be oppressed. So people rebel, okay? And this is how we ended up having these rule-based societies like communism, socialism, democracy, even religious establishments, Catholicism, Islam, Buddhism. All these are rule-based systems, and our 9-to-5 establishment is very much rule-based. And so in UK, the idea of this democratic system is banded around the world as like one of the most progressive kind of ways of governing a country, okay? And UK is a country that doesn't have its own constitution, yet it writes constitutions for other countries around the world. And so there is an issue with rule-based society because not everybody agrees with the rules, but it's about we. And as long as you follow the rules and obey the law, you will be fine. But you are sort of capped to living by those rules. And then some people kind of say, well, I've had enough of this working 9-to-5. I want to set up my own business, and I become kind of this power driver and the person who wants to kind of really, again, show to the world that, you know, I can dominate even at this level. So you start getting these really entrepreneurial kind of people who set up their own businesses and now want to be earning millions and millions and millions to show that they've got money, villas, cars, like 100 Ferraris, you know? And they then work towards leveraging all these below levels of rule and power and magic and instinctive as kind of people that work for them. But after a while, some people realize that even having 100 Ferraris and a villa with 87 rooms does not buy you happiness, okay? So they become, again, go from the I to we, they become sensitive people. And a lot of if you've ever met a hippie person, they might have been a very rich person before, but they gave up their richness to kind of just go out and live in the nature and hug a few trees and kind of just believe in peace, love, and happiness. So your Beatles back in the day were typical kind of sensitive people who spoke about kind of imagine world living in peace and no religion and so on. And that, frankly speaking, pissed off a lot of people at the rule level, because they're like, I like my religion. So that doesn't work. And so what happens then is that some people at this sensitive level who've gone through this whole phase. Now, my personal story is that I came from Bosnia. I was born in Bosnia, and I grew up in a small town called Banja Luka. And in Banja Luka, we believed that the Banja Luka was the most magical town in the whole world. It's the most beautiful town in the whole world. It's 200,000 people. Very beautiful women, very beautiful food and water, but it's not the most magical town in the world, okay? But we believed that, and you know, in our own tribe, it was true. And then the war happened, and I saw a lot of these power individuals wanting to take over the country, many, many different sides and angles, okay? And still they're trying to instill the rule society, which has too many levels of this governance. And they say in Bosnia, for example, if German parliament had the Bosnian sort of establishment or constitution, German parliament would have 900 ministers in the parliament, which is too complicated. And then so when I moved to London as a refugee, I started recognizing all these dynamics at play, and really researched all of this to kind of understand it. And I met a lot of hippies as well in the process. And so for me, it was like, okay, how come all these people live separately or in this kind of togetherness? How can we really integrate that? But then Spiral Dynamics talks about that integral level. So integral thinkers start integrating all these levels below and start recognizing them as integral to their existence. So if you come across somebody who wants to make billions and have 2,000 Ferraris just parked in their garage, you can understand why and how they're thinking that. They're in their process of enlightenment. They're in process of sort of developing their self-consciousness. And if you see somebody who's just happy going 9 to 5 to work, they're just happy in that rule self. Maybe they're not happy, but they don't know how to kind of exit from that level. And similarly, if you meet someone with a huge ego who's like, I'm the best guy in this bit of Bydgoszcz, you can understand that he still hasn't kind of worked through this integration process. And so integral thinkers can understand that all these processes, so when I believe that Banja Luka was the most magical town in the world, that is what got me to then believe that I was the most important person in the world. You know, I was a power, egotistical person, because when I came to London, I said, well, I'm from Banja Luka, and it's the most beautiful town in the world. And people told me to shut up. So I learned my lesson pretty quickly. And then I got a little bit of 9 to 5 job, and I hated it, but I quickly moved into rational kind of power driver on this level, but then realized that that doesn't buy me happiness, and I kind of get into this integral level more and more. And really above the integral level is a holistic thinker who starts thinking really kind of globally about the planet, and that we are all on this journey of self-actualization, and that we're all knowingly or unknowingly tending towards this holistic view. Because guess what? That's why I came from London to Poland. I've never been to Poland today, up until today. So I came here to meet you lot, and you're happy to listen to me speak and loads of other speakers from around the world, because we're all living on the same piece of a rock, you know, we're sharing the same piece of a rock in this universe, and we're all going through our own story, and it's very important to recognize that we are where we are and we're going to get better as we go along. But this relates to design thinking very much, because I believe that design thinkers are people who have started integrating all these things, and if they're not holistic, they're at least integral thinkers, okay? And they can recognize this instinctively and intrinsically in their nature, that the people that they work with reside at all these different levels of consciousness. And they also recognize that consciousness is the kind of ultimate driver. This awareness of the world is the driver that keeps the innovation going, okay? And so how does that relate to then design thinking and companies? So this very model of spiral dynamics that I just showed applies to companies as well. So companies can be in a non-existent design thinking situation where there's absolutely no design thinking in the company. And I sort of projected a little bit of values on the side. Those companies might make, let's say just notionally, these are not like exact figures, but let's say £10 a month in terms of revenues, because no design means nobody's ever going to buy anything. That's the theory. Just going to check my time. And so £10 a month is a lot for somebody that's living in a rural area of India, where £10 is a lot of money still, and they might be even able to feed their family on it. But we know that £10 a month in Poland or UK is not really even going to get me through a single day. So I have to start thinking about how to, as a company, really make something like £100 a month. So people start, and companies start recognizing, and in many respects in the developed world, this whole process of non-existent and unrecognized levels has long gone past. So I think you will struggle to find a single company that's at any of these two levels in sort of Europe, let's say. So in unrecognized stage, the design thinking is not important. They're aware of it, but it's not important. It's like, let's say, £100 a month. But then what happens is the companies become interested. They kind of think, okay, we understand design is interesting, but we're not really willing to fund it. But even at that point, they might start doing something themselves. So let's say it's £1,000 per month. But as soon as companies start investing, they start seeing returns. So in the past, we worked with clients where we just kind of redesigned their websites, and suddenly that's kind of created tenfold improvement in their traffic, in their conversions, in their buying process, and so on. And they realize this pretty quickly, and you know their revenues go tenfold up to, that's supposed to say 10K per month, £10,000 per month. So as soon as they invest a little bit, they see the returns if they monitor it properly, and this is our job to ensure that they see the returns and the value. And then they start becoming committed, and now we're getting into serious money, like let's say £100,000 a month, which is moving towards kind of $1 million revenues and so on. And so more of these, this maps to kind of the consciousness of the company, okay? Imagine this is the consciousness of the company. So I would say for about 100 people in a 100 people company, you have to have at least 1 or 2 designers who are practically doing design, but you need to have a bunch of other people who can support them to support the design activities. And then what happens is the companies start getting engaged. And at this level, what happens is that really the executives, the design thinking becomes the core tenet of the company, and the executives are very much involved. Now we're probably like getting into sort of like levels of like £1 million a month here, and you can see how the kind of like phase shift, right? If as it like the notion of phase shift, okay, means that we've got like tenfold improvement in this kind of exponential thinking. We're getting like tenfold improvement as we inject more design into a company. So maybe like companies like Apple and Tesla are very much in this level because they've a while back recognized that the design really returns the value, and especially this notion of experience design, the idea that experience is the product, because people are very emotional animals, and we make our decisions 95% based on our emotions. And I remember back in Bosnia, people would be very much like, come on, bring me the food, you know, I'm hungry, and so on. And so in some areas of the world, it's even more attenuated and amplified than in others. Like in UK, British people are very sort of polite, and they'll say like, please, thank you. But they're still, internally, they're still burning to say stuff. And so when a company gets engaged in the design process, they start recognizing that experience is design, and that experience design and user experience design is really the ultimate product. And so, for example, Mercedes would, even 10 years ago, would say, when you buy a Mercedes, you're not buying a car, you're buying an experience. And certainly someone like Elon Musk talks and thinks a lot about the whole ecosystem of Tesla, including the charging stations, the battery packs, recharging at home, self-driving capabilities, and even now in the second phase of Tesla's strategy, going towards how the car will make you money and how you can rent it out to other people to make money from it, not even save money with it, but actually make money with it. So this is very, very powerful. But then we work on embedding design thinking into companies and making it really the backbone of the way the company is governed. And this is certainly what we're doing with Ministry of Justice, where there's going to be lots and lots of changes happening there in all realms of the department. Lots and lots of changes in physical and service design, in the software, in the way the service is delivered, the process, across the whole realm. And this really requires a lot more people to start engaging in this experience as the product, and what does it feel like to go through the Ministry of Justice process. And then really, at the top level, we have this notion of distributed design thinking. And companies like, I'd say, IBM are a good example of a company that's certainly committed to this, where the CEO, sort of 4+ years ago, has said, you're all now designers. And then what that means is that it's like sometimes you'll hear CEOs of companies say, I want you to think more entrepreneurially, okay? What they're saying is raise your level of thinking from this rule 9 to 5 to this level now, okay? And what happens is that you don't know how to do that, or you don't even want to, because you're comfortable with your 9 to 5. You're earning a good salary. Why should you do anything different? It's working out for you. Or it's not working out for you. You're already having a terrible life. Why should you try something different and make it even more terrible, okay? So when a CEO says to somebody, you're now a designer, that's not leadership. That's just kind of like, that's what I want to happen. Now, what IBM are doing is that they're doing this very thing of distributing design thinking across their company, but you know, they're having to come across this spiral dynamics, and where people are Those that are comfortable, they don't want to change. Those that are uncomfortable, they don't want to change either. So what I've found to be the useful thing to do is through the coaching process, and this is why we're doing UX coach, which is user experience coaching, and coaching people design thinking rather than telling them what to do. We listen to what they really want to achieve, and most of the time when people tell you something, you'll know this because the subconscious is 95%. What people say is not integrated, it's not congruent to what they think and feel really in their subconscious, which is the majority of their decision driver. We listen and observe to what people tell us, and from that we know how to move them from their current intended state to their future, from their current state to their future intended state. And that process of coaching combined with design thinking, with all these spiral dynamics, is what enables us to distribute design thinking in even big and tough organizations. Now, some of this may happen through formal processes where we say, hey, you're going to come to this kind of fun workshop where we're going to make something together, but some of it might have to happen through sort of means of influence through more kind of subconscious levels. But these two models are very much the backbone of what we leverage to distribute design thinking in any organization. And to me, it's always very important to use well-tried and tested models and research frameworks because, for example, the spiral dynamics has been researched by Claire Graves and the company for probably about 50 plus years, and they've applied this model to a lot of very tough environments, like in South Africa, making peace deals. And I've been involved in some reconciliation talks with Bosnia, and I've seen this in action there. But really, in many respects, companies are now in the competition runs on these kind of levels of committed, engaged, and invested, and companies are having to push higher up to create these kind of 100 million a month kind of revenues, if that's what they're looking for, or certainly so they just stay in the environment and stay relevant for the customers who are increasingly wanting better and better experiences from their products and services. So that's my kind of introduction to this. Now, we run a design thinking Facebook group in which we discuss a lot of this stuff. I can share the slides with you there. I'd really invite you to join this. It's bit.ly/DT for business. Join there, and our community of design thinkers is growing, and it's very sort of passionate and sharing information. And there, I do a lot of kind of live talks as well, along with Diana May Fernandez, my business partner. And so, like I said, this is just the introduction to a long-term conversation I'd love to have with you and continue with you. So thank you very much for listening. And my name is Jason Grant, UX coach. Please ask me any questions after, or even now if we have a little bit of time, but I think I've used up most of my half an hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you.